Michael's name.
Okay, it's 4:30 PM. I'll call the Public Work Committee to order. And we don't have any guests today. Anybody on the Zoom beside the staff?
No.
Roll call, please.
James Gami,
Here.
Barb Ermeling.
Here.
Tom Hubbard is absent. Louis Sereno.
Here.
Roy Mumford.
Here.
Item 4, approve of 9/12/22 Public Work and Utility Committee minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There is I have a question on that. If you look at the minutes, I can find it. That was related to that, to that change order. Or no, I was asking if there was an engineer on site when they were doing the drilling. And okay, there's an Apache lane.
Yep.
And there,
I think it's item 10.
Yeah, it's on page 8 of the packet.
item 10, I think line,
Item 10?
Yeah.
yes,
We've been past it here.
yeah.
Okay, Apache Lane, all right.
Shane doesn't think we should pay the drill being stuck in a hole.
Yeah,
Right,
His engineer was out there on the drilling operations.
and then also I asked if there was an engineer on site for drilling.
Yeah.
Instead of was, it said as.
Okay, so that was a question.
No, it should be was instead of as.
what sentence is it?
This one that I've highlighted that you're looking at?
As the engineer, it said, a whole as the engineer. Instead of as, should be was.
Oh, okay, yeah, you were asking the question. There, it sounds like he's there.
So they did have an engineer out on
Right,
site during the drilling operation.
right, but it not as. Is that as correct?
Yeah, I mean, you could either just eliminate the word as,
Right, that should be fine.
say engineer was out there on drilling up. Otherwise, I,
See, there's no was in there, there's no was in there, it is that. That's it.
No, as,
With that correction, all in favor signify by saying aye.
One sec. I just also noticed that a number of the items, it looks like the votes might have been recorded in the wrong spot. It said no votes for, I know on item 4, it shows a yes vote of 5 with 1 not voting.
oh, the total, the tally up there.
Yeah, and then, looking at item 10, it says no vote for with the result of pass. So I think a couple spots, maybe the numbers just got put in the wrong spot.
now the fourth would be by the yes and the,
That was the only thing I noticed though.
otherwise it was defeated.
Yeah,
Same on 11.
yep, okay, we can correct those.
All right, with those correction, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Item 5, a staff report, CIP update.
There's nothing too major since last week or last month. The Birch Street project is more or less complete. Paving was done, pavement striping's done. And, yes, we have a punch list walkthrough this week on that. Last couple weeks, you might have noticed, MSA was out, surveying Weston Ave between Alderson and Birch. So they got that work wrapped up before, winter here, so they can work on design over, winter season. And, I guess we did have an RFP for design services out for the Ross Ave and County Road X intersection. We received no proposals, I guess. Talked with the county highway commissioner, and we'll be sending them, I guess, first try to figure out why we got no proposals back, and then, send out a revised RFP.
Now that's with the county.
So the county's the lead agency on that one, since it's on the county highway.
So what should we send it out?
Well, they sent it out, I guess I should say.
Oh, okay.
When I say we, it meant us and the county,
Yeah,
it's a
okay,
joint
okay.
proposal, so.
That's for that roundabout?
Yeah, and then they're also looking at redoing from Sternberg, essentially up to, was that like Eau Claire Ave?
Okay.
So there's a good section of County Road X that'll be redone as well, along with the Ross Ave intersection.
But that's a nice project. I don't know why they didn't get a proposal.
Yeah, we're not sure if it was if the timeline was too tight for people or what the, I guess that's what we're trying to figure out is how come nobody responded.
Okay,
So,
maybe by next meeting, we know something about that.
yeah, so we'll keep, try to figure that out. I guess, yeah, Josh will probably touch on where we're at with the treatment plant and some of the PFAS updates. The station's Tiny Tricia, I know the easement documents got sent out, for the Cedar Creek Interceptor, so. Yeah, unless there's any major questions, I guess there's not too much else, new as we head into winter here on a lot of those projects.
Any question? Okay. Street operation update?
Yeah, along with our usual stuff, street sweeping, urban mowing, all that. Some inlet repairs we've had. The big deal was, Ryan Street, East Nick. About a little over 2,200 feet of East Nick. Tomorrow, we should be hopefully finishing that up. We worked,
Question?
huh?
The picture you had, one of them shows that area is so wet.
Right there, yep. May.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Why so wet?
Frost coming out, May. That was from May of the
That's in
spring.
May, you took a picture.
Yep, that was from May 4th.
Oh,
That was one of the spots. There's more. So we cut that down. We worked together with Cronenwetter. And you can see there, those areas where we're cutting, first we ditched it, mostly the south side needed the ditching. So we cleaned the ditch line out on the south side. In those areas we cut down, we basically hit the bottom of the ditch. We ended up putting breaker in, our concrete breaker, sand lift, gravel. So, tomorrow, it's pretty much wrapped up other than the ditches are pretty much done. There's a little bit to do tomorrow on topsoiling yet. And then we're gonna hydro seed winter rye and, there's another mix that Riverview Construction has that they sell to 3M. It's not like a number 40. It's got some different grass seed in it, but he says it'll grow for sure. So we're gonna see that. We should be winding things up hopefully tomorrow, pretty much grading the road. So it was a pretty big project, but it went well. It was good working with the village of Cronenwetter. They provided typically 4 people. Their one operator was on their dozer. We had our dozer there, but it went well. I'm really proud of our crew and their crew. They worked together really good. So I'll be getting the numbers together on what we figure the cost was. At the end, we tracked everything by day, how many hours, equipment hours, how much material they had, or their equipment hours and that, and labor hours, ours. And the bulk of the material came from us, recycled gravel, the concrete breaker, and also the sand came from us. They didn't really supply anything. So we installed an extra culvert, cross culvert, so there's one added one. There were some big boulders where the road used to jog in. We got those out of the way, pulled those out, so it's a pretty nice road when it's done now. So we'll have to see what happens. Steve Groshek lives to the east of where this stopped. And he's talking about building a house next year. So if that's the case, we're gonna have to look at, because there's more soft spots as we head to the east where there will be trouble in the spring again. So, but this road will hold up fine. So, it was quite a bit of work. After that, it would be nice too, if we're gonna do something like this next year, that we would start earlier than this time of year. It just would make it simpler right now, but things are going well. Other items, we've got a bunch of odds and ends we need to tie up before winter. Just loose ends, a lot of different things that are out there, but we started today with leaf and brush pickup, but we'll make it. We'll get everything done, so that's kind of the goal. We did some work at the treatment plant, knocked a hole in the wall so they get the stuff in, poured some concrete approaches out there, and I don't know. That's about all I got, unless you guys have questions. As far as Community Center Drive was the other project. American paved it, got the surface on, and it's painted. Portage County did come last time, I think you knew about that, did our other painting for us, so we're kind of starting to wind down and switch into the winter mode on everything.
How much breaker around you put in there?
Good foot,
All 1 foot
yep.
and 12-inch sand,
Pardon?
12-inch sand?
Yep. Yeah, in those bad areas, Shane, the cut was probably about 3 feet. The road ended up getting raised a little bit because it didn't pay to go down below the ditch lines, But typically a foot of breaker, foot of sand, foot of gravel, recycle on that thing. So, I mean, it'll last until I'm in the ground for sure.
Yeah, Minnesota road, is the terminology for it.
But,
Excavate out 3 feet and you bring it back up in layers.
yeah. So,
Any question?
I hope that solves the problem.
pardon?
I said, I hope that solves the problem.
It
We've had
will.
enough of them out there over the years.
Well, for that stretch, it will.
Yeah, because there's probably still, another mile past there to the east?
About 3/4, I think.
Yeah. But as we start to climb the hill, I think it'll get better. We were probably in one of the worst areas right there because it was so low and swampy. That's where all the mud was coming up in the spring. So as we start to climb the hill, it won't be a 3-foot cut. It'll probably just be a 2-foot cut off of there. So it'll be mostly just sand and recycle on top.
As a former employee for down there, I could tell you, we were always really nervous having to respond out there because we'd get our squad cars stuck, and every spring it was really nerve wracking out there. So I'm sure the residents will be really happy to have a little bit more safety.
What saved us too a lot is that between Groshek's and as you go east down there, Dan Kellner owns 80 acres. So as far as getting rid of the overburden, we did end up taking some to Ryan Street just because it got too wet where we couldn't get in there to dump. But I talked to Kellner and he's willing to take more, so that would save us, it saves us a lot, not having to truck all that stuff out. So we do have some of the waste, the spoils that are piled up at Ryan Street right now, but we'll just see where that goes as far as being able to get rid of those down the line.
Anything else? None?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Utility operation update?
Yeah, some of our items on the water side, we had another few general well maintenance items with some leaks and some pump repairs. We fixed a couple curb stops along the way. Had our operators kind of review the new building area where we're gonna have our meter testing benches to see what else we need when we move into that new facility for the operating guys. I'll touch on the treatment plant stuff in a minute. Added some backup power to our summit tower. We prepped some hydrants. We have some retrofit hydrants that are gonna be having, I think we have 6 hydrants we're gonna be retrofitting tomorrow. Some of the general sewer items, a few lift station replacements of some transducers, pulled a pump at Mesker Colleen. Helped out after a manhole was hit over on Community Center Drive. We're approaching the end of our sewer jetting operations for the season. There was assumed leak on the walking trail down by the Hinner entrance off of County Highway X. So we did some sampling, turned out it was just high elevated groundwater coming out of that valve stack. So we had the guys do a little hydro excavating routine to help relieve some of that, up the slope a little bit before it got to the valve itself. I guess moving on, guys had a bunch of diggers tickets again this past month, few work orders to do. And then I guess with our PFAS portion. So as Dan mentioned, if you swing by the treatment plant behind us here, there's a big hole in the east side of the treatment plant. With some plastic hanging down. So we had our temporary treatment skids were delivered a couple weeks ago. We moved them in. We had August Winters hired. They did some fabrication of some piping to tie in our incoming water to go through the bag filters into the treatment vessels, out through strainers, and ultimately into our clear well. So everything at this point is piped. Kind of I'm waiting to hear back from Water Surplus, who provided and kind of gave us the layout of what we need for the treatment vessels themselves. Hoping to get them on site maybe end of this week, early next, just to kind of review how we have everything installed and piped to make sure everything's A-okay before we get them back on site to actually put in the media into the vessels and get our startup operations rolling. So I'm hoping in the next couple weeks, we start that process, because once we get the startup process going, it's gonna be another couple weeks to get our PFAS samples turned around to make sure we're meeting the ultimate purpose of this whole temporary treatment. So we're getting close, but it's still probably another month at least until we start putting some of the treated water back into well, not treated, but PFAS-free water back into the distribution system. So it's moving slow, but hopefully we can get something done. The hole in we should have a door going up. I believe Chad mentioned next week, the overhead door company's coming to put the door on the treatment plant. So close that up and hopefully we can see how it functions and get used to putting this into some of the other locations possibly down the road, so.
Just one question quick. What's the disposal of the media?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a few locations that may take it. I guess I know they've talked about it. I can't remember where. I think there's some in Indiana or Michigan. There's some locations that take the used up media. But that's definitely probably some further discussions we have to have of how it's gonna take place, when it's gonna take place, who's gonna be doing it. Because Water Surplus does have some functions as we go forward. They'll be occasionally doing some back fluffing, they say. They don't back wash. It's just kind of loosening up the media, so they still will have a hand in some of this as the process starts going. So it's been somewhat difficult trying to just kind of figure out who's doing what, when, and where. So we're near the end of getting the stuff ready to go, but now it's just actually getting things turned on and seeing how everything functions. So, but I think there's a good, I think year plus is, I think, what they're banking on for the useful life of that media. And I guess it probably obviously depends on the amount passing through and what the removal is within the media. So, but yeah, where and when the media is gonna go, I guess I'm not positive at the point, this moment where it's gonna be.
They are certified, there are certified
Certified land.
landfills for the material, yes. You can't just, we won't be able to just take it to, Linville and say, here you go.
I assume that.
Yeah. So, when we started this, I believe the closest landfill or location was in Colorado, but, sounds like there's a couple others in the interim that have been.
Yeah, I was thinking that eventually that stuff will last forever.
Yeah.
In your report you have, chloride leak again?
Yeah, and sometimes if they say leak, I mean, it might just be they start seeing a little bit of, maybe it's just a loosening of the piping or the tubing that's fitting on there where they note it, and then if it happens frequently, it's probably time to replace the tube in there.
Is there a better system out there? Can we redesign this and do something to eliminate this? Because we always have that problem. Every meeting, we have some leakage. You have 7 wells, I'm sure it's different.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
I guess they can come up with better design or something.
yeah, we can look into seeing if there's any other options to
eliminate.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that.
Mr. Dyer, is that okay?
Sure, I know some chemicals are a little harder to handle than others and they're just prone to having problems.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And a lot of times it's a seal that seems to go out, they replace the seal and it works for the next, 2-3 months and then they gotta do it again.
So I think we should do some study on it, see if we can
Yeah,
improve it.
and I did start tracking which wells have some of this stuff. I might need to catch up, but try to track it a little better, but I know there's some culprits that are repeat offenders, so yeah, it's probably time to take a look and see which ones are causing us repeat headaches, so.
Okay,
You can file a report in your computer or whatever, right?
Yeah,
That you can bring this up, well, so and so.
yeah.
What are the maintenance issues?
Yeah, and we have a SCADA project that we're working on as well, where hopefully we have some more potential input options to when the guys go to the wells, where we can actually have that data captured at the site when they're there, that can just be put in. I know Michael and I have grand visions of, information and documentation purges where we can take it and actually make it useful. So with our new SCADA, we're hoping to roll some of this stuff in where we don't get a report a week after something happened, where we can actually see some of this data and trends and be a little more proactive than reactive to some of this stuff.
And historically, the operators had a clipboard at every well lift station and they did something they'd write on the clipboard, but it stayed at that location. So unless you went to that location and grabbed it, it didn't make its way back to us. And then all of a sudden they'd be like, hey, are we ever gonna repair this pump? We're repairing it, every week. And it's like, well, I didn't know that you were having that issue with that pump every week. So that's a systemic thing that we're trying to get. So it is, easily viewable for everybody and you get kind of that ping of, okay, this is the 4th time we've had to repair this pump in a month.
Because it'd be kind of curious as to which wells are giving you the most grief, you could be, one could be just fine, but the other one you keep, but if you don't have a record of it per se,
That's why we, all our operators have tablets they're going around with, so they have all this technology where we're trying to have them use it in small steps to keep putting more on their plates. Some are a little more receptive than others, but.
Also helpful for warranty information
Yeah.
too, so you're not fixing something that you shouldn't be.
Right,
I'm sure there is some better pump out there.
Yeah, and there could be, maybe they have some different connection
It's
points.
matter of the cost, I think.
Yeah.
And usually we go with the cheapest one and cheapest one, what you get, that's what you get,
Mm-hmm.
Repair continuously.
Yeah.
Let's just take a look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Give us a report when you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
Just, I've got just one other follow-up question on the PFAS. What is once we put that system in, we're gonna test, I assume, to see that it's working, and then what is the schedule going forward for all of the wells, including once we put that in place? I mean, do we test every 3 months, every 6 months,
I guess it probably will be based on the DNR guidance. I'm assuming once So I guess in 4 specifically, you know, that one, the one that we're really putting the treatment in right now for, I mean, we'll probably have to have a quarterly sample done. Timing for the other wells to have this done, I'm not sure. All the other wells are within the current regulations that are out there. You know, we have wells 7 and 8 would be coming online, so if those prove to be good producing wells like we anticipate, it'd probably give us a little more flexibility to jump on some of the other wells where we have some other immediate needs as well, iron and manganese removal on some of them. So I think, you know, seeing how this one functions, seeing how well 7 and 8 come up, will probably give us a little better barometer of which way we need to go with what wells, I suppose.
Thank you.
Any question for Josh? Thank you. Policy discussion and recommendation. All right, item 8. Birch Street reconstruction change order number 2.
So, yep, as I guess we were trying to wrap up the Birch Street project, I guess we came to a few reconciliations of quantities, which is kind of what this change order is doing. You know, so we had under drain cleanouts that we ended up not utilizing, and some woven wire fence that was eliminated in areas, mainly because it wasn't really going to serve a purpose. It was heavily dense woods and some wetlands that it was keeping people out of. So kind of made the decision of I don't think we really need to worry about you know, fencing that off. The cleanouts, there are several spots that just weren't going to be used, and the constructability of them were a little tough with how they were going to be located. So we ended up removing those. And I guess as we were going through the bid quantity or the quantities on the contract, the excavation common number for the multi-use pass actually mirrored the common excavation number for the street portion of the project. So that significantly inflated the path cost for common excavation. So that got corrected to be back to what it should have been initially. And then there was, I guess the contractor had requested a change in the concrete shoulder. Their subcontractor had given them a cost per linear foot, and the bid document had square yards as the unit. So they made a request for that quantity to reflect the linear footage instead of the square yardage on the project. I guess at the end of the day, those 4 items, we have a deduct of $130,909.50 to take the contract from 1.914,481 to 1.8574650. I guess the main question is if we're agreeable to the quantity changes. You know, it's 3 deductions and 1 addition for a net decrease. I guess the biggest ask was on the concrete shoulder, since the linear footage was, I guess the bid was accurate per the bid sheet, but it, I guess, didn't meet the intent of what they're trying to do. The 1050 does reflect a linear foot cost, not a square yard cost of concrete. So.
The contractor made a mistake. He has time to correct his mistake in 24 hours after bid opening. He didn't do that. Now we are at the end of the project. You're requesting $39,406.50 additional cost because he made a mistake, which I'm not sure how can read the square yard linear foot. I can understand that, but if the bed top said linear square yard, it is a square yard. Why are you putting linear foot in there?
So you're saying that because he didn't correct it in the time period that he had, that it should remain the same?
Correct.
This was my question. When do you bid things like concrete, not in square yards?
So typically curb and gutter is a linear foot cost.
Then it's-
So the concrete shoulder is I guess it's something we start using, I think in 2020, kind of in lieu of a gravel shoulder. So, generally it has been bid as a linear foot. The subcontractor on we've had the same subcontractor in all the projects in SD Ellenbecker. I believe every other project was bid per linear foot. This was the first project Becker Hoppy had as engineer on this project, and they calculated per square yard because that's what met the DOT spec was, square yard. So I think, somebody looked at it quickly, okay, there's this many linear feet of concrete shoulder. So I guess they asked, so I'm presenting it to you, whether you want to accept it or not is, I guess, the question.
What did the engineer have to say?
They, I guess, agreed that, the cost submitted does reflect a linear foot cost. So they believe, the intent does match that of linear footage, not, I guess, what square yardage would be. But again, I guess that's, how do I put it?
Well, he made a mistake himself. He said on an Excel sheet.
Correct, yeah.
I mean,
And that's another one, I guess technically with that large of a quantity change on that Common X, the contractor could have requested to negotiate a new unit price since
Yes,
it was
yeah.
a much different quantity.
he could have.
Which they actually can still do, they can still propose to do,
Yeah, unless they
I don't- I mean-
accept the change order, right?
right? So I guess maybe part of the question would be, do we think it's something worth having them, suggest they go to arbitration over? And then, we're into a legal battle or something, and who's gonna end, we could end up losing, I don't know. What would be your level of,
Well, I'm not gonna worry about losing because, when you get tangled with the contractor over this stuff, you just gotta go and take your chance and whatever happens. But the thing is, if he made a mistake, he made a mistake. Both of them made a mistake. Engineer made a mistake, contractor made a mistake. What he's doing, I mean, okay, I rest my case, I mean.
Who else did the job?
Haas was the other general contractor and they had the exact same cost, but they also had Ellenbecker as their sub for the concrete work.
Okay, so they both grabbed the wrong number.
Yeah,
And they
and
didn't realize it either.
correct, yeah.
Okay, so it isn't like we went with this contractor versus that one because their price was better. It's both of them were the same.
Yeah.
Now, if we were giving him that square yard, how was the cost of the project? Was he still lower better?
Yeah, like I said, they had the exact same number on the bid tab. It was, both contractors had the exact same unit price in there for the concrete work there.
Both of them used the.
Both of them used the exact same number.
That would lead me to believe it was more of an honest
Yeah.
mistake,
Yeah.
right? That's why I was curious what happened, if we had another bid, what happened in that bid, because.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been.
I have no doubt in my mind he made a mistake,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but the procedure wise is, okay, let me ask you this.
Yep.
What does spec call for? For a correction of mistake, when the contractor made a mistake? What is the spec called? We should follow the spec. Whatever the spec said, that's what we're gonna do.
yeah. Well, and I guess usually it would be the ask of the contractor for the renegotiated. I could look at that, but
This spec has the procedure for making correction
Right.
to the mistake. I think we should follow the spec, whatever spec said. The spec said pay him, no problem.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think we've had examples of this in the past. If it is something that is discovered by the engineer before the contract's awarded or as the bid is reviewed, the low bidder is asked whether or not they have made a mistake and they wish to withdraw their bid.
Right.
That's their only option. They can't change the number after the fact.
correct.
So I don't know if that was done in this case. We've had examples where that hasn't happened on bids here.
this was discovered as the pay application was being made and, the subcontractor submitted their measured linear footage for the project. And it was discovered that it wasn't in linear feet on in the contract, it was per square yard.
I guess my biggest concern would have been that if we awarded this contract based on these numbers, and there was another contractor that bid, and he had the correct numbers, we did take them because this one was a lower bid, I would have concern about it. But being that both of them had the same number for this, I don't know if we want to go through litigation and cost us more money than worth the change, and it wouldn't have changed no matter.
If we go through litigation or arbitration or whatever, you gotta follow the spec. And there is no ifs or buts. The spec is this spec, you sign it, it's a contract, your signature on it, we have to follow. And that goes for us, and goes also for a contractor. But, and in this case, they did not follow the procedure. Now, did he make a mistake? Yes. So the other contractor also made a mistake.
I guess my only, just my opinion is it was an honest mistake that in the end didn't hurt us. It probably would have, the cost would have been there regardless. And if it was a mistake, I don't want to, personally, I don't want to make a big issue out of it. I get what you're saying, but that's just my opinion. So I would be happy to make a motion to move forward, but.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend the village board approve change order number 2 for the Birch Street Cross Point to Shorty reconstruction project for the decrease in project cost in the amount of $130,909.50.
Is there a second?
I don't know if I'm ready to make a second yet.
Second will allow you to take action one way or the other.
What's our overall relationship with Becker Hoppy and Ellen Becker? I mean, how much work do they do for us?
Well, I guess every project we do usually put out an RFP for design services, so, Becker Hoppy's got our Business 51 utility design project currently. And I think that's the only contract after Birch Street that we'd still have with them. SD Ellenbecker is pretty much the only concrete contractor in the area. So when we have a street project, they're gonna do the work. And I guess Switlick is the general contractor. They built the Crestwood Acres subdivision 2 years ago. They did Birch Street this year, so.
I mean, I hear both sides of the issue, because I hear, hey, you made a mistake, you own it, but that's why I was asking, is it an honest mistake?
Yes.
To me, there's a difference, or there's an egregious error of being a difference, right? And I also look at the overall relationship, that what do we have with those, and, with those businesses, and I guess it's, my personal take on this is, it sounds like the taxpayers got a net benefit, right? Unknowingly, but, and do we quote unquote hang the contractor for that when seemingly the other contractors made the same mistake?
Yeah.
I guess I would lean more towards saying, let's not hang them maybe, but Shane's point is very valid. I hear what you're saying. But I guess I don't know if from a fairness gut standpoint, I tend to lean a little bit more that direction. Let me ask you this, have they, and I don't know if you know the answer, have they taken their profit out of that and just added the cost in, or did they mark it up with profit?
No, so I thought I included it, but I can send to you. bid that Ellenbecker gave to Switlick said 1050 a linear foot, and 1050 is exactly what got put on the bid price. So I mean, Switlick didn't have any markup from the price that Ellenbecker gave them. It was just the same, it was a pass-through cost.
You gotta remember, I'm engineer. As an engineer, I have to say it the way it is. That's all it is to it. I'm not taking a side or who's right, who's wrong, or whatever. That's a spec, that's a contract, that's the way it's signed, that's the way it is. So,
And I guess that's why now they're asking to modify that contract.
I think it was nice if the engineer, he made his recommendation, because he's the one made the recommendation to us. Award the contract based on these bid tap or this information, and we approve the contract, we vote on it. It is his job to make a recommendation, that's my recommendation. But we have a motion on the floor. I have to call 3 times for a second. The motion fails. And I'll call the second time. Second, is there a second?
I'll second it. Just because I feel I don't want, this is a contractor that we have dealt with, and I think we've always dealt with him. And they've dealt with us in honesty. And it doesn't change if we would have gone with the other bidder, it would have been the same issue. And if, like I said, my thing would have been if there was a difference in cost between those two contractors. And I understand what you're saying. This is the engineer's mind that, hey, this is what you bid, that's what we need. But to have them go ask to open up the contract, that's a lot of steps that at this point in time, I don't know what it's gonna accomplish, other than solve the engineer's thing that this is what you did. I understand.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Item 9. Ryan Street and
Trutzer Lane.
left station, change order number 1.
So this one should be a little easier. There's a design to replace the cover and hatch at Ryan Street to make it easier for cleaning. Contractor was able to find a supplier that made such a hatch, so we just are gonna keep the existing cover on. Actually, we're even getting a new existing cover because they broke the existing cover. So we're getting a free existing cover out of the deal. So it's a deduct of $7,230.
How much is those covered?
So the cover was $3,750, the hatch $2,680, and they had $800 of labor.
Okay, what's your wish?
motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. So the contractor would replace this just because he broke the hatch.
Correct. Yep. And then we couldn't find one that met the design, so we just are removing that from so they gave us a new one of what was there.
Okay. Item 10, Apache Lane Utility Project Engineering Contract Amendment.
Yep. And then, I guess Tanya Westfall with Clark Dietz did join the Zoom meeting, so, if there's additional questions, Tanya should be able to answer them. Because we had this, on last month's agenda, I was told to get a little more information back, so, just trying to summarize that, where the original scope was based on 19 weeks. The realized construction time has been 45 weeks, so there's an additional 26 weeks on that, 10 of which were full-time inspection and 16 part-time. And some of that part-time work coincided with the lift station work on Trotzer, so the same inspector was able to split their time with both projects, so it wasn't fully billed to one project. We had a couple field changes during the project, some based on resident feedback of wanting to, knowing better where their septic systems were and how future connections would be made easier. There's also a couple of design changes. One of the bigger ones was on the north side. We kind of hit a rock shelf. So instead of telling the contractor to follow the plans, we redesigned that to create a drop manhole and brought the depth of the sewer up so it was above the rock, so we didn't encounter the extra rock excavation costs. So that did require the engineer to put some more time and effort into redesigning that part of the sanitary sewer, but it saved a fair amount in construction costs. So I guess last time I think I emphasized the restoration efforts, which is, I guess as I better understand this now myself, it was a part, but not a lot of what the extra costs incurred were for.
So the project took 19 weeks longer,
Like 26 weeks longer.
26 weeks longer, just because of these issues.
Yeah, and kind of how the contractor split up their construction work. The construction services contract was put together before the contractor said this is how my schedule is going to work.
So the contractor gave us the schedule,
The contractor gave us his construction schedule.
19 weeks.
No, the 19 weeks was based off of the original proposal from Clark Dietz saying, we estimate that this is a 19-week project.
And you had longer, 26 weeks.
Correct.
What's your wishes? And what's the schedule on the project right now? Where are we with it?
We're at substantial completion, but still, I guess, going over final payment warranty work for the restoration.
So restoration is done.
It's been seeded, it isn't growing.
Then we're gonna hold money,
Yep, correct.
not a couple thousand, to make them interested to come back and finish it.
Correct, yeah.
Maybe they should use the seed that dams.
Yes,
What's some of that, by the way?
I guess what I'm confused on in this, and I still am,
We'll get some quack grass.
were you made aware of this? Because it seems to me like, in my head, this is what I'm perceiving. Clark Dietz says, okay, this is the project, it should take 19 weeks.
Yep.
Then the project was split up into two, a winter and a summer.
Yep.
It seems like at that moment, the alarm bell should have went off over at Clark Dietz, like, hey, this is gonna take a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
But they went all through the winter and all through the spring and all through the summer. And yeah, there are still leaves left, but we're getting closer to not having them. And then somebody went, oh.
Are they done?
And it just seems to me like a long time ago in a place far, far away, they should have been talking to you saying, we got a lot more money on this.
I think the standard procedure, at least in the way I have seen it, is we make a schedule for the project, the engineer make that. However, you ask the contractor, part of your bid, give us the schedule with it. Then you adjust the schedule accordingly. Because he's the guy gonna do the work. He knows what he has to deal with. And he has a good idea how long it's gonna take him to do the job.
Yeah.
And we should go with his contract, with his schedule. I'm not sure if this has been done with this project or not.
No, so the contract with Clark Dietz was approved before we had the schedule from Advanced Construction. So the initial construction services contract was based on the engineer's estimate of how long the project should take. And then the project was bid, contractor was brought on board, and they had a different schedule. I know Tanya did mention to me probably in June, July of, hey, it looks like we're getting close, we need to talk about a contract amendment for these hours. And I think part of it was the hope that this project was supposed to be wrapped up in July and, maybe it was only gonna be a $5,000 ask or a $10,000 ask because of, being able to meet that date. Instead it, project lingered a little there, throughout the summer, so it didn't get wrapped up as neatly as it could be.
Who lingered it?
What was that?
Who lingered it?
A lot of it was just the restoration efforts. I guess as far as drawing it out.
That wasn't the right term, but I mean,
Yeah.
who was at fault for stretching it out farther?
Yeah. So I don't know, Tanya, if you have a different,
Sure, I can add a little bit of clarity to that. Michael's correct in that the contract for construction services was in place prior to the contractor being on board. There were some additions to the construction work as well that came after that. And Michael noted a few of the conditions of the DNR permit. Now, many of these things on their own aren't significant pieces of work, but when you start to add them all up and you're required to be on site full time during any infrastructure installation for DNR, they tend to add up. So the reason we didn't talk about this sooner to this magnitude also has to do with our discussions last fall. I was hoping we could make it through and not add on to this. We are over the amount of hours that I had originally budgeted for this, and I had planned an intern for most of this work. Going into winter sort of changes that. But still, we were trying to be very efficient and work on both projects at the same time and schedule things so we could have one inspector for both the lift station and this project. DNR added a couple additional manholes to this project and meter pits. So that's a couple days each and backfill for those. So a week of work with that and restoration associated is anywhere from 40 to 50 hours. So that's a couple $1,000 for each one of those efforts. So we're looking at $4,000 to $5,000 just for the DNR and what they added. That wasn't in the contractor schedule to start with either, so that was added. This rock work and the additional design and time for changing some of that geometry to the north was probably another 3 days. So if you have a person out there for a 10-hour day, and each hour associated with that adds up to another few $1,000s. So all of these kind of came incrementally, again, with the hope that we could come in with our budget looking okay if the contractor was done earlier in the summer or the spring, which was also their expectation. And that just didn't end up being the case. So the restoration here is an issue, but as Michael mentioned, it wasn't the biggest thing. It was the majority of the underground work that was left after the fall-winter construction was where this comes from.
Tanya, have you
And that's
broken out,
what we, pardon me?
have you broken out the additional cost that's related to the landscaping?
I probably could do that, but again, some of it we tried to have the same person out there doing some of the lift station work. So actually, it probably would end up being a little bit more if we were to do that solo. It would take me some effort to do that. If,
My only thought is, should we pursue damages against the contractor in relation to the additional fees because they were late on the landscaping? In other words, I'm not disputing the fact they incurred additional costs for that, but
yeah.
who should be paying those costs?
That has been done,
And that has been done? Okay.
not on this project. Not on this project. And that bridge, pedestrian bridge. The landscaping, actually the contractor paid $200,000 to DOT as a penalty.
But this was the one, that was the grass one too on this one, wasn't this?
Yeah, so I mean, and the ped bridge was the railing, if I'm not mistaken. That was the
Oh,
railing, so
That
that,
was the landscaping, this guy never showed up. And finally, the contractor, general contractor himself did the project.
yeah. But I believe the reason we held money on that was because of the railing, the bridge wasn't useful. So its purpose and intent couldn't be used, whereas I guess here, the street, the water sewer lines are there. Anyhow,
Well, okay, now I got a question, because is this the same area that they've tried to get the restoration fixed
Correct.
18 times?
yeah,
Okay, and it just isn't right, so.
yeah, so we haven't paid the contractor for the restoration yet.
But we're gonna pay engineering inspection costs for it.
Yeah, so I mean, we've kind of held off on asking them to do more inspections on the project, since the only thing left is the grass growing. So it's been relegated to more of if somebody's out there to go do the lift station inspection, is the grass growing yet? No, okay. It's not 8 hours a week of looking to see if grass is growing yet.
But I kind of agree with Roy, is why should we have to pay the cost? Because the contractor for doing the restoration isn't doing it correctly.
Yeah, so I guess then you're penalizing the engineer for the contractor, not,
Well, no, I'm saying we
Yeah.
paid, if they
Yeah.
did the work, they should get paid.
Right.
I'm saying
Yeah.
that the landscaping person,
yeah, and we,
He has to pay that cost.
Right,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Do we ask them to break out the portion related to the fact that the landscaper did their job right and they were being called back to spend time on that?
We're not penalizing.
And I don't want to penalize the
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah.
You have to penalize the contractor.
Yes.
So you can collect that money, then pay the engineer. Engineer did his job.
right.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I
If
agree
he's
with you.
delaying the
Yeah.
project, he
I
has
don't-
to pay the cost.
I don't have a problem paying the engineer, I have a problem
Paying
paying
the
the
contractor.
landscape person.
yeah.
How much is the penalty on the project?
Tanya, is this one $1,000 a
Well,
day?
I knew it was for substantial. I have this in front of me, I think, here. Bear with me a second. I think it was $1,000 up to substantial completion, but I'm gonna look at what it is for ready for final payment.
And generally, there is the language in there that it has to actually offset a realized cost, so I guess that's where, yeah, if we know what that cost is,
Yeah, but we would need that from.
we would need
the-
that, correct, yep.
I would
Right,
like to
it
have
cannot
it
be
broken out for that exact reason.
Pardon?
Tanya, could
One
you
of the
give us
things
the
I
penalty
didn't
cost on
mention
the
for-
project?
I think-
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, go ahead, Tanya, she was reading it right.
She was reading it? Oh, okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Read it.
Oh, no, that's not what I had in front of me, sorry. You please go.
Yeah, there is I guess a final change order for the project to get quantities and everything else straightened out, so at that time, we can address the cost of the restoration too, before final payment is made.
Because I mean, like I said, I don't have a problem paying the engineer, they did the work.
Right.
But they had to do the extra work because the
Somebody
landscape,
else didn't do their work.
they didn't do their job.
So in the end, we can pay them and then we
Yeah.
can figure out where the money comes from to pay them
Yeah, my recommendation,
in a roundabout way.
Yeah,
recommendation to
What
try
we
to
have-
get that to the,
like I said, the project in general is projected to come in under original. So
No,
so-
but
so the
that's-
so the project itself has the cost to cover this, and then we just would look at withholding that amount from the contract.
yes, that sounds like a.
Is the contract written, we can practice or we can use that to penalize the contractor to pay for that?
Yeah, usually the liquidated damages is usually a clause on there saying that
They have
there's
to
some,
be
some
actual
reasonable
costs
cost.
and they cannot be punitive,
Yeah,
is the outrage, yeah.
So we would need the costs from you, so we would know.
Right.
I know you said it's a little extra work, but.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. One thing too, Michael, I probably, just remind you of this, the, quantity of restoration increased on the job as well. So we'll have to consider that in terms of, the amount of work they had to provide and the days associated with that. You know what I mean?
I didn't catch the first part of that.
The quantity of restoration increased.
Yep.
So we'll
Yeah,
have
so
to
that's-
consider that when we're looking at this as well.
Correct, yep. Yeah, so that's a future change order request.
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
So with any change orders that have been issued on this project, have there been extensions of time? I presume there have been probably or not.
Yes.
Yes, there was one.
So those factor in as well, I think, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Well, definitely you gotta consider the rain day. And of those extension was due to the rain or due to the additional work they had to do out there.
Yeah, yeah, so there was an
Right, so
extension this
just-
spring that lengthened it into the summer.
I'm just asking the question to make everyone aware that there's probably some other
You're correct? Yeah.
factors here too.
Yes.
I guess you'll have to figure out what the real cost.
Yep, okay. Well, we can get that
It is
breakdown.
$1,000 per day. It's Article 4 in the contract.
So do you know how many days he was over the project schedule?
I would have to look that up as well. It's enough days that you would cover your costs if you had to assign $1,000 a day for each day. You would get into the punitive range rather than the real cost or your cost realized.
We're not trying to make money on the project. We're trying to just make sure we pay everybody accordingly.
Correct.
Correct.
What's your wishes?
I'll move to recommend the village board approve the contract amendment with Clark Dietz for additional inspection costs for the Apache Lane Utility Extension Project for $36,350 with the stipulation that Clark Dietz can provide a breakout which will disclose the additional cost by area so that we can identify additional costs related to the landscaping.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you so much.
Item 11, Weston Avenue Utility Design Contract. Michael.
Yep, I talked about this, I believe that was last month as well, as part of the joint meeting with Plan Commission. So went back and discussed the cross-country route with AECom further. So I went from the 93,750 original, I guess, estimated design cost, and as we refined the scope and looked at things, their estimated cost is 71,500. This is roughly, I guess, 0.5, half a mile of water main and about a third of a mile of sanitary sewer involved in this rework. Their task with hours and costs is broken down. I know there's a discussion item about some of those parcels already having a DNR delineated wetland. So if that is the case, some of this 21,000 number would be reduced based on what would be deemed still valid from that wetland. So I guess we'd be looking to go that route, making the route go off of the pavement. I would project would also have some construction savings. Going through the wetlands, they're going to be dewatering and having a lot more issues than if we're kind of staying up in the highlands. This is a low point, and it would be going uphill, primarily with the sanitary sewer. So, and it does also serve, I guess, those properties better. There's no potential for future service on this lot, on the south side, or really this one, as it is just wetlands abutting Weston Avenue.
That water is much easier to design because there's no slope to it, so you shouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah, there may be some boring associated with that, kind of through the wetlands as we connect Weston Avenue back north. But then, yeah, so, and the design would include soil borings and other items just to
And the sewer he has enough slope to make it work.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, this is the high point about right here. So to get it to go back downhill, there's enough slope there.
Okay. And do we need lift station?
Nope, that'd be all gravity from
All
there.
gravity?
Unless I'm looking at the wrong place, isn't there a house on the one side of Weston Avenue? Kind of
It's,
set back and on,
there's a house down here.
okay,
So that house, so the water main would come back on Weston Avenue here. That house would be able to get water service there, and then, they'd likely have to have a pressure sewer to get towards Highway J, which was part of the original design.
okay. I was just kind of wondering how that, if that house ever needed it, how it was going to, because they're kind of just there.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of swamp all over the place, but they're there, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of a neat place, actually.
So that 73,000, what that include? That include the delineation also, right?
Correct, yeah.
21,000 is part of it?
Correct, yep. Yeah, it was,
Oh, excuse me.
you know, they're estimating 21,800 for the DNR delineation, wetland work. You know, design of 25,000. And then permitting would be 12,700.
And you're saying that delineation could be a little less.
Some of that could be less if, you know, if Mr. Gert does have those, certified, you know, wetlands already mapped certified.
Yeah, this should come out as, I'm pretty confident it's gonna be less, right?
Yeah. So that'd take off some of the delineation work and probably also some of the permitting costs.
Okay, what's your wishes? Excuse me, Michael, do you have anything else to add to it?
No, I don't.
All right,
I move to recommend the village board approve the additional design cost for cross-country utility route east of Progress Way for an estimated design cost of $71,500.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it, thank you. Item 12, Pinner Spring First Edition Construction Service Agreement. Michael?
Denyon Homes is looking to build the next phase of the Hinter Springs subdivision. They bid that out earlier this summer and have awarded the project to Crew Check Construction. As part of the development agreement, the developer agrees to pay for the construction inspection costs, borne by the village for the inspection of the infrastructure. So we have a proposal from Marathon Technical Services, who is also the design engineer in the project, and they were the inspectors for the first phase of the project. So I guess they know the design better than anyone else out there. And I guess all costs associated with this end up being billed to Denyon Homes, so the village doesn't actually pay it. We just pass it back through to the developer.
Okay, I was gonna say, because the village shouldn't be having any costs.
Correct. Yeah, so they have a range of 19,500 to 21,500 as their cost. And that would all be billed back to Denyon Homes.
Any more question for Michael?
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend the village board approve the construction representative contract with Marathon Technical Services for Hinter Springs First Edition for the, should that be second edition or?
No, it is the first edition because the
Okay.
original project was just Hinter Springs.
Gotcha. Hinter Springs First Edition for the estimated contract range of 19,500 to 21,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. Thank you. Next meeting date, Monday, November 14, 2022 at 4:30 PM. Regular meeting. Item B, Monday, December 12, 2022 at 4:30 PM. That's a regular meeting. Item 14, topic for future meeting. There was only one, I guess, with regard to the chlorine.
Yep.
Pump or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Remark from administrator, Mr. Donner.
Just for everybody's information, guess we probably were a little bit over optimistic in terms of our being able to make the new building accessible to the public. There's a lot of unfinished site work being, we're waiting for that to be completed yet. There's some interior punch list items. So we had to take furniture delivery because that was a date established back in April, March of this year. And once we did that, we had to take furniture from here because we were not getting all new furniture and some things are being mixed and matched. So we've been in the process of moving staff to the new building for 2 weeks. And much of the staff is over there, but we are not open to the public over there. We are open here to the public and are going to remain open to the public through the end of absentee voting. Now, once we reach the point of substantial completion, we will then be able to take the public over there. I guess the complicating factor may be that we're going to be open in 2 places. So I think people coming here for absentee voting, the reason we're doing that is because you can't transport ballots from one place to another after they've been accepted. Or at least it creates a lot of questions on the integrity of the process. So that was a little wrinkle that was recognized as we were talking about how to do this. And I guess right now we have to kind of remain flexible on this thing. Ideally, we would have been over there. The date was picked by Myron and mainly by Myron based on their estimate of where they'd be. They technically don't have to reach substantial completion until December 1st. So they gave themselves some cushion anyway. In hindsight, we probably should have said, okay, we'll wait and get the furniture delivered later, but it's all hindsight at this point. So I guess just for everyone's information, I know I've sent some emails to the board. The substantial completion date's a bit of a technicality. It is, until we do reach that point, contractor's responsible for all the utility costs and other things. The only problem is we somewhat risk complicating some of the details that may be discovered if there was potentially some nicks on the wall caused by the furniture mover versus Myron. So, those are things to be pointing fingers at each other about later. I think a lot of that stuff right now is very minor, but we're gonna, I'm just explaining the reality of the situation really is what it is. So I know there's probably been a little confusion, some expectations out there. The public, some members of the public have been coming to the new site. We posted the doors today. Because there is construction activity, the contractors and subcontractors have been leaving doors blocked open or unlocking them. So we're going to try to get that under control and avoid people walking in uninvited or whatever, unexpectedly, whatever you want to say. So I guess the best answer I have is it's a work in progress. We do expect to hold an open house there on the 25th of the month in the new boardroom. So we have been told as of today that the elevator company is mobilizing people here Wednesday. So I don't know how long that means that the elevator is going to take to install. And we also have paving in the parking lot to take place. Those 2 items really need to be done, I think, before we have this place fully open to the public. But the elevator does not need to be in place and working. Technically, we could have partial occupancy, but we wouldn't allow the public into the 2nd floor till the elevator's there, would be the bottom line. So I guess kind of an update there. I don't know if you have questions, comments. It's, again, a situation we have to remain somewhat flexible on right now.
I mean, I know there's probably a million different issues, but first of all, did they put water in the water utilities lab? No?
That's still being worked on, but
Okay, because that, yeah, I've heard that one. And have they put the drive-up window in the correct spot yet, or got it where people can drive up and?
don't
So by
know
the
if they
means,
even
you're
received
still not in your
Dropbox.
office, right?
No, I'm in the middle section right now.
Okay.
so there are still 2 items that are outstanding.
Yeah, we'll be getting an update on that tomorrow.
Yeah, because I was kind of wondering, because it wasn't even that they didn't put it in, which should have been done while they were constructing it.
Yeah.
And then they, the curb or that you couldn't get to it even if you wanted to?
I think you could, I mean, you
You have to have
don't
long arms.
you don't want the curb to be the building, cause then
Right.
people end up running into the building. So.
Right,
The curb itself is like a foot in length, and once they bring the grade up and they pave, they'll be able to run their tire on that, and it brings them, we went out there and we practiced.
Yeah.
And it'll bring them close enough to the drop
kind of
box
like
that
the airport where I gotta open up my door and roll down my window to put the ticket in.
that box's not gonna be that big though.
Okay. That's all I knew there was a couple items, just when I'm scanning, I hear conversation.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Bennett?
The only other thing is that we've been starting things relative to the village strategic plan. Everyone in this room should have received the notice about the ability to participate in the focus group. The focus groups were held last Thursday, Friday. There may be another virtual one on the 20th. We'll see what kind of interest there is. But there is an online community survey. So if you have not taken that, you'd be encouraged to take that. That does not apply to board members though, unfortunately.
Board member wouldn't have focus group, right?
Right, so those we'll get our kick at those things as Corey goes through other things.
Okay, these that you just had, we didn't, the board wasn't supposed to be.
Correct,
Okay.
that was for the community.
I thought I was there for a second, I thought I missed a meeting.
Yeah.
Do that. Okay.
Anything else?
That should do it for now.
Okay, thank you. Remark from the staff?
Just 2 things quick. They were in my report, but 2 of the big items, we're gonna be replacing a cross culvert on Northwestern Avenue, which will result in closing the road for probably a couple days later this month. We're waiting for culverts yet. And then also the entryway signs are nearing completion. The primary ones are up, secondaries are getting moved. The lighting is, we're waiting on that yet too. I emailed Banner today. I'm waiting to hear back on that part of it. And the tertiary signs, those are the ones that are out in the rural areas on the 2 posts. They had a couple that were low. They made a mistake, so they got to replace some posts. But that should be wrapping up by next meeting. That hopefully will be, electricians will be done and everything will be completed.
Okay. Remark from the committee member. Yes? I do. We have those decorating lights at the Alderson and Schofield Avenue. And also we have it at the Birch Street and Schofield Avenue. They don't have a light on it. They don't,
The 3 posts?
Yep.
Yeah, I know Scott and Roman,
that's,
we're ordering lights, or at one of the intersections, they were experimenting with which LED retrofit would be the best. I can get an update on where we're at on that.
well, because we talked about it last year. They said,
Sure.
the lights are on order, you're gonna put them up. And it still is on order. We haven't got it.
Sure. Okay.
I think it's special, but all the went in there is just open it up and
Yep, okay.
thank you.
I'll see where they're at on that. I guess the only other announcement, or whatever you wanna call it, we are gonna just move back to having 4:30 meetings of the Public Works Committee. Unless there is a true need for a joint committee meeting with Parks or someone else. Feedback was committees prefer just having their regular group meeting, so we'll be at 4:30 as Public Works going forward.
All right. Anything else? No announcement? I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Come here.